Hi everyone! Today we're talking about Chapter 7 of Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, which is about perceiving spaces. And just a quick review of the book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. The skills that she teaches in this book are edges, spaces, relationships, lights and shadows, and the gestalt, which is seeing the whole and its parts. So as simply a part of drawing. So we've discussed edges in previous videos, and now we're on to spaces, and today specifically we're talking about negative spaces and positive forms. So right here, I was, by the way, toning the surface, which I showed in a previous video. And now we're going to be doing the negative spaces of a chair. And she had showed a picture of Van Gogh's chair and how this is done. And we're using our viewfinder again, which you can also find a video to in my drawing playlist. So basically we're just picking our own composition and using whatever chair we want, and then we find a unit. So we basically just take one piece of information. It could be a negative or a positive shape, and we're just going to transfer that shape onto our toned surface that we have made in the same shape as the our viewfinder, which is the paper rectangle. And so it's a little, my paper's a little larger than the viewfinder, and that's part of this exercise as well. Is the whole point is that everything needs to match and relate to this shape. So that's why you will use some measuring in this exercise. So because you'll need to be measuring, what you can do by closing one eye and using a pencil or your thumb or whatever. You'll just be making the relationship similar. So if for example, you can also use the horizontal and vertical crossbars, and that was really helpful to me. She says really take your time to get this your unit shape correct, because everything is going to be built on this. So it's really important to get it accurate. If it's not accurate, everything else is going to be off. So that's what I'm doing here, is just making all the adjustments. And I literally cut out a bunch of this video because this is the first time I'm doing this. I did a lot of pausing and just thinking, and there was not a lot going on. So I just cut a lot of the thinking out. And so you're just seeing me in action here. So she also mentioned that a lot of people that are very good at drawing, they still do a lot of these cues and measuring. They might even use their hands and just eyeing and so forth to make sure they've got their relationships correct, but they do it so quickly that it's almost like a magician. The average person doesn't even notice that they've done these same things, and they might not even notice. So yeah, back to our drawing. So I'm working on the negative spaces and finding it's really difficult to just look at the chair and get them. I keep on wanting to go back to my left brain, and she says she wants you to notice that when you find yourself making the shift to right brain. And she says if you're struggling with anything, just remember everything is right there in front of you, that you need all the information and answers you need. And to just keep, she said take about an hour for this. I think I only took about 30 minutes. I am so, like, I've never been diagnosed as ADHD, but I think that I might have a little bit of that. My attention span is not very long. So right here I realized that on my viewfinder, when I look at this chair, the seat is all above the horizontal crosshair. So this is not right, and I'm not happy about it. She says if you have any trouble, go ahead and draw that part directly on your viewfinder. She says there's nothing wrong with that. That's what it's there for. It's a tool. It's not cheating. It's there to help you, especially while we're just getting our feel around this. I mean, it's like anything new. Swimming, learning a new instrument. This all takes time and practice. So that's what I'm doing here, I think. And I can't show you without rearranging my whole camera, but I'm going to at least pretty soon. I'll put this troublesome spot of the seat on which I felt was the hardest part of this. Put it on my glass. And also another thing I want to point out about this glass is she keeps referring to it as plastic. I don't know where I got the idea that you use a piece of glass. Plastic would probably be better because it would be less dangerous and less likely to break, maybe lighter. I actually cut myself, but I don't think I cut myself on this piece of glass. I think I cut it on one of these metal things. Binder clips, that's what they're called, because started bleeding all over my paper, and I didn't see any. I felt something when I rubbed against one of those. That's why I'm thinking. And also the edges of this one actually are really sanded. There are some really sharp glass, and that's another reason why I'm just saying, you know, maybe plastic would be better. I didn't mention that in the video about making a viewfinder, but I'm adding it here. Okay, so continuing on, it's getting, once I got the seat down, the legs were easy to do with a negative space, and I can tell that I'm actually just drawing the legs as I see the positive form because they're so skinny, and then just checking myself by looking at the shape of the negative space and seeing that it matches up to what the negative space looks like when I look at it. So I'm kind of going back and forth between the positive and the negative. Especially because there's so much negative around the edges of this. Some people have chosen, as she showed examples, to draw the chair all the way to all the edges, and then I think it would be a little more bounded and easier to navigate. But since I have like a sea of negative space, I find myself going back and forth between the positive and the negative space. So she says to think of when you think of the cartoon of Bugs Bunny and he runs through a door. I'm thinking of Wile E. Coyote for some reason. I don't know if he does that too, but she says, and then he leaves a hole in the door. So what we're drawing is the door, what's left. And she says to think that your chair has disintegrated and it's gone away, and so you're just drawing what's left. She says also you'll be probably very pleasantly surprised by your results. She showed pictures of someone who drew a chair that had wheels, and before and after the negative space training. And before, it was kind of sad, and all the legs were the same length, like to the bottom of the page, even though you know, it was on an angle, and also all the wheels were just round, but in real life some of them were facing opposite directions, and they should have been different shapes. So here's another thing she said to do, is you can erase either, you could leave it all toned, or you could, I'm whiting out the positive to make the chair look lighter. You could also erase the negative space and even add detail. I could add the screws. There's my boo-boo. And here's another exercise she had too. One, she says, the one on the right, try it as an upside down drawing of the legs and arms. And then this one, she says, try with the negative space. It's another chair with a little girl. I did this in like 10 minutes or less. So just really a scribble. So if you tried harder, you would, if I had spent an hour on that, think what I could come up with. Thanks for watching.